G'day everyone. Today's vlog we are going to be having a look at the Remnant. So I know the Remnant are one of the big centerpiece species of Fragged Empire. I know that they play a larger role in Fragged Kingdom. But I thought I really wanted to dive into them and maybe sort of so in Fragged Empire Second Edition, this is what we're going to be looking through, and of course disclaimer, graphic design is still being worked on, so don't judge me too harsh on that one. I want to look into them because I think there's some nuance with them that can be overlooked, and I feel like I've done a better job at sort of fleshing out their history, where they come from, and giving this species a little bit more, we'll say, cultural depth. But let's before we do this quickly, just have a look here. So this is all of the different species that are going to be in Fragged Second Edition. So you've got the classic ones, which is, I sort of call these the Prime Four. They were in the first edition core rulebook. And then you got the second ones here, which came out in the Protagonist Archive. All 8 of these are going to be in second edition in the one book. And then also just giving a little bit of a glimpse. So these are some ones that players can do with GM permission. You've got the Flesh, which we touched on last vlog very briefly, as organic robots used by the Corp. You've got the Oni, which is a particular strain of Nephilim. The Toladol, and then you've got the Twilinga, which is a Twifar without a Farron in them. And then you've got some NPC only ones here. So by canon, by the book, all the Archons are dead, but GM might want to mix things up, or bring one back. So there's some stats there for the Archons. And then you've got some generic ones just for these are like templates that could cover a range of different things, beast and brute and horror. Then of course you've got the ghostly echoes, which are an important part of the Remnant story. We'll dive into those. Farron and Mechanids. Cool. But anyway, we'll do a dive on each of those in the vlogs as we work through things. But today we are doing the Remnant, who used to be known as the Ursai. So the first thing you'll notice is they used to be called ursai, which is gives you images of bears. So why does this one look like a cat? We will answer that, so stay tuned. Okay, so this is the intro page, just a little bit of a primer, sort of introduce people to the species, an example character. I love this artwork of Banga. I just think it's so powerful. It's great. I love it. And I'll show you some artwork from the Remnant from the other books too. So let's have a quick look at Fragged Kingdom. So Fragged Kingdom has a bit more in here. So we got the Archdruid, who's of course the big bad guy. He was a Remnant. Sorry. But then you got here just an example of a psionic all monk, and there we go, paladin-y type of all monk paladin sort of thing. And then in Arcane Bay, you've got here another example of a Remnant all monk psychic here. So anyway, so that sort of gives them, there's a wide range of sort of feline imagery has been used. You got the big tough lion type ones, and you got these more agile ones with the bigger ears. But we'll jump into that afterwards. Okay, let's set things up a little bit. So firstly, so this is their home system of Kumba. Home planet in there is Kumba Prime, and this whole area here was their old nation before the Great War. And you'll notice, very importantly, you've got the vast system here where the corporation came from, and that was within their nation, and havens over here. Okay, and you've got lots of refugees fleeing from Kumba all the way to Haven, and we'll jump into why that is. Okay, let's do their history. Okay, I will read this out for you all. The All-Being chooses the weak and broken to be his instruments, so that all may know it is he who acts so powerfully. All Embodiment, chapter 62, verse 6. The ursai were a diverse mammalian species that were created by the Archons during the first millennia of their empire. They were a greatly favored species due to the quality of their genetic construction, which made them generally stronger and smarter than the other Archon children. But apart from the thermal regulating hair that covered their entire bodies, they had no particularly unique natural gifts. Over time, the ursai's favour declined with the Archons as they granted more of their attention to their newer children and the exotic abilities that they had given them. The Archons even sliced off star systems from the ursai nation to give to the other species, such as respite, that was transferred over to the Kaltorans. As one of the oldest nations within the Archon Empire, the ursai took it upon themselves to share their wisdom with these new species. But as is the proclivity of youth, even with nations, this guidance was scorned. After the Exion Rebellion and the beginning of the Fractured Age, the ursai found themselves cut off from the other species. Their Archon masters from the Unending faction became paranoid of other Archons and spent much of their time spying on them and hoarding vast resources produced by the ursai people in their Arcadia Quataria space station. The ursai suffered during this age, but also built themselves up to be self-actualized and increasingly self-governed under their negligent and absent Archon masters. When Exion's agents made contact with them decades before the Great War, they found the ursai nation already primed for rebellion. The Exion coerced the ursai into betraying the Archons by funneling in Nephilim operatives, sabotaging defense systems, stealing resources, and building a secret army of powerful warships and elite soldiers. When the Exion and its Nephilim army attacked, it all went to plan. The ursai killed their Archon masters, took control of their precious Arcadia station to jump in Nephilim forces, and they launched effective attacks against their neighbours, including the Kaltorans. But the ursai traitors were to be betrayed in turn. A large Nephilim brood that had fought alongside the ursai to destroy two of their neighbours turned on them, bombarding their worlds with devastating synaptogen virus that had been specifically engineered to kill ursai. In desperation, the ursai turned to an ancient human weapon known as the deatomizer, but the weapon was beyond their understanding, and killed not only the Nephilim attackers, but also the ursai themselves, leaving behind seas of tortured psychic ghosts that would come to be known as echoes. With a single flash of vast power, all ursai in the Kumba system had been killed, and their species had been reduced to yet another footnote in a vast and complex war. But in defiance of this ignominious end, some 50 years after the Great War, a being of immense power, the All-Being, arrived on Kumba Prime and resurrected millions of ursai from the dead. Those raised were renamed to the Remnant, and with their new name came a new identity and purpose, one of spirituality and faith. A teacher that was seen as the embodiment of the All-Being lived with the Remnant for many years, teaching and protecting them from the echoes. After a time, this teacher left their world, leaving behind only their god's invisible presence. Over the coming years, Remnant society would fracture over disagreements about the nature of the All-Being and why he had raised them from the dead. Most see him as the only true God, creator of all. Many see it as a psionic manifestation from billions of minds merged into a single entity, while others dare to see it as the Exion itself, returned to reward them for their loyalty and to right the mistakes of the traitorous Nephilim who had attacked them. The All-Being's protective presence is felt strongest at the Simbe Mabwes, the holy sites and relics that dot the desert surface of Kumbha Prime. Many pilgrims have gathered at these sites in hope of miracles, forming around these protective locales into massive cities called gutas. But in recent years, the All-Being has started to withdraw his presence from these holy sites and allow the echoes to encroach. His withdrawal has forced many Remnant to leave their homes for the newly rediscovered Haven system, questioning why the All-Being would do such a thing. Have they angered their god? Or have they simply been encouraged to move on? Most Remnant refugees have found a home on the jungle planet Mishpasha, but have been met with a mixed reception. They are a numerous people that bring a few resources, but have the cultural strength to maintain their identity and ability to work in any field, unique all-monk healers and powerful scions. With each year they grow in number and strength, and their potential to disrupt the established cultural order of Haven grows. It will only be a matter of years before they are a major political, economic, and military power within the system, and switch from beggars to providers. Okay, giant big info dump. So, this is the Remnant, you know? They were the ursai, they're like one of the oldest Archon-created species, and then they end up sort of become disenfranchised, and they betrayed the Archons, they fought alongside the Nephilim, but then they were betrayed by the Nephilim, who killed them, and they basically kind of killed themselves and the Nephilim that were attacking them. But then, out of the blue, for all intents and purposes, a god turns up and resurrects them. And so now they're in this ghost-infested planet of Kumbha Prime, but their god is protecting them from her. There's God given them these all-monks, which we'll dive into a second, who can do lots of healing and protection. But then their god is starting to withdraw his presence, and they're being nudged towards Haven. And they are, at the moment, refugees. Okay, they're picking up what they can. They don't have the massive cargo ships of the Corp, but they're straggling this massive journey to Haven and slowly getting set up. But the reason why this is such a big potential for cultural impact is that, unlike the other species, the Remnant they're not rebuilding or starting from scratch. Whereas, like, the Corp had nothing, and then they had to build up. The Kaltorans were shattered back into cannibalistic tribalism, and then have to rediscover it. The Nephilim have never even, like, had a nation before, or having to think about economics or governance. Same with the Legion. But the Remnant, like, the people that got resurrected by the All-Being were the people from the Great War. And so they've still got all this knowledge. They remember how to run things, how to make things. I'm sure they've probably lost lots of their cities, because that's where, like, most of the ghosts are. So they don't quite have the economic power of that. But they're still, they're stable. They know how to do things. And they've also got a bunch of unique powers to sort of help that. And we should also go into their species stats too. They have bonus attributes, so they're just generally, as a people, smarter and stronger than others. So, as they stop being refugees, they're going to become very powerful. And population-wise, they are one of the highest. So, not as much as Kaltorans, definitely less than the inbrood Nephilim, but more than the Corp, more than the Legion. And they got lots of warriors, they have the potential to become quite a strong people. They're not there at the moment, though. So things may not go to plan. Okay, but let's jump into some of this. So firstly, let's have a look at some of the subcultures. So let's first off deal with the All Faith. So this is the prominent Remnant. So most Remnant, about 70% are part of the All Faith. This is, they have a monotheistic religion where they believe the All Being is the God, the creator of everything, and they have access to this power called the All Power, which can be used to heal and and make force fields very defensive. Also perform amazing physical traits. If you have a look at Fragged Kingdom, so it dives into a little bit more about the All Being. So that can give you a extra bit of glimpse into that. And in terms of doctrine wise, so there was basically a big prophet called the All Embodiment, who came about right when the people were being resurrected, and he basically did most of the teaching. Okay, and according to the All Faith, that is like a physical manifestation of their God type thing. And they created the All Tombs, which is their collection of holy books, and this is still being it's still being canonized at the moment. There are 6 canonical All Tombs, 4 that are approaching canonization, and 2 with disputed origins. Okay, so you kind of got this, their religion is still solidifying. Okay, so it's not in that super regimented thing. A lot of their doctrines orbit around truth and love, are kind of like these 2 things which lots of their teachings come out of. Think about, they're very, it's not okay, so it was very tempting to make this the whole authoritarian Inquisition styled religion, because that can be fun, playing the hard-nosed paladin. Okay, but this is not what I wanted. I thought you've got enough real sort of authoritarian groups, particularly look at the Legion, and the Corp and the Nephilim have this very top-down sort of structure. I wanted to do something a little bit more ethereal, and so think much more monks and very minimalistic living styles. They just live off charity. They give freely. There's much more sort of empathetic sort of type of adherence, and the All Monks are pivotal to the All Faith culture and religion, because the All Monks, they basically in charge of not only government, because it's a theocracy, but also teaching. You've got healing, of course. Then also you've a lot of the social services are all practiced by the All Monks. Okay, cool. So that's them. We'll kind of push forward a little bit, otherwise I'll just keep rambling on about that. Okay, the next group. So this is the other large cultural group. So these are the Scion Mind, or as All Faith like to call them, the All Mind Heretics. So this is roughly 17% of the population, and this group believe that the All Being is a psychic manifestation of billions of remnant and Nephilim minds merging into a single entity. They look at all power as being another type of psionic power with its own rules and stuff that do, of course, stem from the All Being. But these guys are, how do you put this? These are really pragmatic people. These are they're very, very pragmatic, super focused on logic and science and education. Okay? And they're doing a couple of interesting things to sort of give you a bit of an idea about this. Okay, so a big thing with them is that they are trying to create their own all entity. Okay, and they believe that the All Being is this egotistical, selfish, powerful thing that sort of squashes all entities that might arrive. And they're trying to create their own, called the All Mind. And the way they're doing it is they're getting the best of their people, okay? The smartest, the wisest. They're getting the best of them, and when they die, they direct their mind towards this All Mind entity, which they're trying to form. And if you're not worthy, then basically they guide your mind away from the All Entity, because they believe the All Entity is made up from the minds of the dead. Same as the All Being was made from the minds of the dead. So they're trying to craft one that is, they believe is hiding at the moment. It's hiding from the All Being. And they're hoping that one day it will be strong enough to rival the All Being. But a big part of this, though, is that I'm not sure if it's the right term. We'll just say it anyway. It's kind of eugenicists, okay? I'm not sure whether eugenics is the right word. I need to look up the meaning of that one. But basically, they kill all people who are don't fit. So you're basically looking at anybody with mental disabilities and criminals, or people who are perpetual drains on society, or they consider foolish, or unwanted. They cull them, okay? And this has the effect of it kind of... Look, the brutal truth is that it does help their society. So their society is actually quite affluent and got it together, and that's because they're culling all of the bits of the people at the edges of the bell curves, effectively. And it does make them a more prosperous people. But the question is, at what cost? There's a cost to having that on the ethical framework of the people, of being comfortable doing that. And they're sending a lot of these people who don't fit will often flee. And they'll often go to the All Faith, because the All Faith is much more everyone's welcome, much more charitable. But then they'll also have a tendency to send people off to the third subculture, the All Truth, or as the cult of Exion have they've also been known. So this is estimated to only be 3% of the Remnant. But these guys are the embodiment of what some of the other species fear in the Remnant. So the Legion, see, the Remnant has these ursai traitors, Exion loyalists, and that's what these guys are, the embodiment of that, because they believe the Exion is the All-Being. On the Nephilim are quite... how do you put this? Suspicious of the Remnant, because the Edenbrood Nephilim are trying to denounce the Exion and trying to further themselves from it as much as possible. And the All Truth guys have a tendency of drawing recruits from the scion mind and also from the Nephilim. And you've got the Corp, of course, because they kind of see the ursai with their old jailers, so they kind of oh, you guys are just bad. Okay, so the All Truth have multiple different sects within them. So the primary two, the Midnight and the Twilight sect. Okay, so most times when you think about All Truth, this is what you're looking at. Okay, so the Midnight is the largest sect, and they venerate the Exion and wish to see the Ursai nation restored alongside the creation of a new Exion loyal Nephilim brood without the Devoy itch. And then the Twilight is another large faction that commonly works alongside the Midnight sect. They venerate the Exion in a similar way, but do not care for the return of the pre-Ursai nation. So the Twilight have much larger Nephilim contingency within them. But then you've got these two other groups, okay? And there's small groups, but you've got, for example, the Dawn. So is a new and tiny sect that believes the Exion is repentant of its actions during the Great War, and is trying to make amends through the healing gift of the all-power, and by withdrawing itself from the galaxy so that others may prosper without its disturbing presence. So these guys, these Dawn guys, they do believe that the All-Being is the Exion, but they believe the Exion is repentant. And that's why all power is like healing and positive, because it's coming from a repentant Exion. And so these guys, and an uncomfortable truth for the All Faith is that some of the people of these Dawn sect are actually able to perform all faith, all power. Okay? And the last group here is the Dusk. So the Dusk is a small sect that hates the Exion, but respects and fears its great power. Most see them as a quirky doomsday prepper cult that is fixated on surviving the return of the Exion. So these guys, they think, yes, the Exion is the all-being, but that doesn't mean we have to like the Exion. So they're kind of like, we accept a harsh truth type of thing. Okay, so that's these guys here. That gives you a bit of a glimpse into them. The last thing here is we're going to lightly touch on these, so I won't go into them deep. So these are the echoes. So these are the psionic ghostly manifestations that were created when the ursai activated the deanimizer. Yeah, cool. Okay, I won't jump into those. Hopefully that gives you a bit of a primer. Oh, I forgot. Why does he look like a bear, and some of the others, everyone else looks like a feline? Okay, so the reason for this is that the ursai were a very diverse mammalian species. You had lots of different types of them, but the primary ones that just happened to be on Kumba Prime and that were resurrected just happened to be feline. So there's a feline ethnicity is just simply dominant just because more of them got resurrected. Okay, but there are pepperings of other ethnicities, we'll just call them, and they can all, like, they're all considered the same species, but you can also get strong and agile or smart or wise or dumb or whatever variants, okay, of each one's. Yeah, like, I mean, you can see, agile feline here, but then much more sort of stronger, even if you cover up the arm. Feline one there, and yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything. And just to quickly, touch on the species stats, because, why not? They get pluses to persuasion and psychology, small arms and gunnery, +2 personal attribute points. They had the language corp and ursai, and if they suffer 2 attribute damage from a single attack, they start to bleed. And complication, prejudice from corporation and legion. Cool. Okay. Thanks so much for hanging out, guys. Take care.